Hey guys, in this video I'll show you how I painted my Wolverine for Crisis Protocol. Once it's made up, you want to prime it. I used a light grey here. And then next you'll want to take some yellow ochre. So you could build it up with lots of layers of yellow here, but it seems to be faster if you start with darker tones for doing yellow. So I did two layers of yellow ochre for the body and then the legs and also his head. Once that's dry, you do your second layer. And then I took some yellow sun and applied one coat, I think, of this. You might want to apply two, but I found one was good enough. Next, take black, and we will do the stripes on his chest and back. So there's 6 stripes. You'll need a small brush to get those nice points. And we will also do the mask. Alright, here it is done. If you need a guide on where to paint, it's not super clear, you can pause it here and see where the lines are. Next I took some sky blue and flat blue and painted the shoulder pads, the gloves and the boots. So you'll see here that this is quite a light blue, but we will add a darker blue wash on top of this to add some shadows, so don't worry yet. So paint the 2 shoulder pads, both of his gloves, his underwear, and his boots. And then that's how it will look when you've done that. Next, take Kislev flesh, and we will paint his chin and arms. So you should just need one coat for this. Don't worry too much about painting his teeth, we'll go over that later, and the inside of his mouth. Next I took a clear orange to paint his belt and the X-Man logo. So again, this is quite bright, but we will add a wash on top of this to make it a bit darker as well. So it's starting to look pretty good. I really love this model. It's really fun to paint. Next, take some sepia wash and we'll paint all of the yellow bits. So this wash works really well on yellow. Creates a nice shade. Much better than something like Nom oil. So go all over his chest and his legs and let it pool in some of the crevices. Then take flat blue, and here I made a wash, so add lots of water to the flat blue and we will wash all of the parts that are blue to add some shadow and make it a little bit darker. So we'll do the shoulder pads. You can't see much of a contrast on this because it's quite flat, but you'll really notice when you do the gloves that you'll see it go in between the fingers and create some nice shadow. So you'll see the wash pooling there in the wrist and creating some more definition. This is a lot faster than painting individual highlights. Next, take some dead white, get a fine brush and do the top and the bottom teeth. As well as his eyes. Don't worry too much about going onto the black. You can always go back and tidy that up later. So I just made sure each of them were fully covered and then went back with black and did the touching up. Next, take a lighter silver and we'll do his claws and also the little connectors to his glove. where the claws come out of. You might need to do 2 coats if you spilled the blue paint onto the claws. And then take a black, and that's when I touched up the eyes. It's a lot easier to paint the raised edges and try and be neat on the inside. Next, do the X-Men symbol. And then here I added a line, like the image on his card, at the top of his boots and down the V. This part you need to be a little bit careful with. There's no real guide on where you're meant to be painting, but yeah, just do this part carefully. Then I took some Nuln oil and washed his belt. So this adds a shadow above and below the belt, as well as darkening the orange. I find Nuln oil works great when you're wanting to have a natural kind of look, but for these Marvel characters I've been using it less because it tends just to look dirty. So Lord of the Rings characters it's great, but on something like these more cartoony models, I find I just use it just in the place where I need it, like highlighting the parts under his claws rather than painting a whole section. I'll just carefully paint in individual shadows with the Nuln oil. And now the model's pretty much done, and here I was doing some highlighting to bring back some highlights on the face, and then I took some more yellow to hit the raised areas on his clothing. You can spend as much or as little time on this depending on how you want the contrast to be. And then we just need to base it. So here I took a medium grey colour and painted the whole thing. And then once that was dry, got some Nuln oil and painted the whole thing again. If you have any silver elements on here, like grates, you can paint the silver before you do the wash. So just be aware of that. And then I take the dead white and do a very light dry brush. Take all the white off the brush and lighten up the pavement. And that's my method for pretty much every model. So it's a 3-step process: paint grey, wash, and then dry brush. And that's a pretty good way of keeping it consistent and fast. And that is done. Very happy with this. Here's a fun miniature to paint and didn't take very long. The last thing to do is do the rim of the base. So I take a thick brush with a nice point on it and get some black paint and go around it. And then wait a couple of minutes and do a second coat. And then that's done. If you're playing lots of games with these, you're going to want to protect them. So I use Vallejo matte varnish for this. And I usually just do 1 coat. Seems to be enough for now, but if I notice anything starts to rub off in the future, I might add another coat. But for now, that seems to be doing the job. And this is the finished miniature. Yeah, had lots of fun with this one. If you want to see more photos like this one on Instagram, you can follow me at Miniature Johnny. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.